All right, it's Saturday, December 30th, 2023, and you're listening to Tell It Right Podcast, episode 56. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us. If you are a subscriber, thank you again for your support. We greatly appreciate it. If you're a first time listener, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you're getting all the latest episodes of Tell It Right Podcast. As well, I like to put extended versions up on YouTube, so make sure you're subscribed to YouTube. But other than that, thank you, everybody. Greatly appreciate it. So that's just going to be me today. Try to keep it short, see what goes on here. But I'm going to try to go rambling on about something that I saw on TikTok the other day. So we'll get right into it. So, very weird. I started getting these TikToks in my feed. They were about this lost civilization called the Tartarian civilization. Somewhere in like the 1800s, 1900s or something, or we'll say 1800s. Some kind of mud flood came through. Wiped out this entire civilization. And apparently they were supposed to be the most advanced, I guess. They had free energy, incredible architecture, great standard of living. And this was located somewhere in Russia, actually, which is very interesting. So it's like, yeah, somewhere above China. I mean, it was supposed to be this huge empire, okay? And the reason why nobody knows about it is because, in quotes, the elites removed it from history, basically discounting this existence of this advanced race. So very interesting. So here's where it gets really freaking weird. So they claim that this empire spread across the entire planet. So like this empire had control not only in this area in Russia, which would pretty much be all of Russia, and then like all of those neighboring countries that kind of loop around it on the eastern end, like Ukraine, Poland, all the stans, Norway, Switzerland, Sweden, whatever, all those countries, right? So they're all part of the empire, but they're even saying like this empire spread into the Americas, all over in Europe. And the main basis for this is that, how do I want to put it? So they say this mud flood came in, and they're basically saying that these structures were super tall. They were like mega structures, bigger than skyscrapers that we've actually built. And apparently this huge cataclysm happened where a mud flood came and pretty much wiped out like the whole northern hemisphere, if that makes sense. And so the arguments they're trying to say are, so if you look into some of these major cities in the United States and even over in Europe, in whatever, Middle East, they're basically like, okay, so like in the city of Chicago, you're gonna notice a lot of buildings that look like they're like sinking, in other words. So the sidewalk comes up like higher than a window, and it appears that window's like bigger. And in some parts, like you see houses that are like lower than, you actually have to walk down steps to get into a house. So there's an explanation for that, and that's basically the city of Chicago raised itself 10 feet. It was a huge thing. Like, so many people were making money. Like, so many entrepreneurs were just coming out there, getting their hands on equipment and labor, and then literally selling themselves to all these businesses, all these buildings, all these homeowners. Basically, will raise your house, because what they were doing was, back then, they needed sanitation. They needed to put the poo somewhere. They had nowhere to put the poo. Kept going into Lake Michigan, and then they just kept fucking drinking it and getting sick and all this other weird shit. So after trying to figure that out, they knew they needed to like move the water down the river. So how do you do that? Well, you get a bunch of pipes and you dump it in the river. Well, they couldn't dig. I mean, it just didn't make sense. So this fucking genius, I don't even know who he was. It was on the PBS special, by the way. This fucking genius guy just decides, oh, well, let's just build the pipes on the streets, and then we'll just backfill it with dirt, and then fucking raise the city 10 feet. That's what they did. So, a lot of dirt, definitely. Mud flood, no. But, like, I believe that's, I didn't actually look this up. I should have looked this up before this. But I believe that's pretty much what every other city did after Chicago did that. Because that was kind of something invented in Chicago. So you see the same thing in like San Francisco. You see the same thing in New York. It's basically because they were developed cities, but then, had to figure other shit out for their infrastructure. And basically put their shit pipes on the road and then backfilled everything. So I don't know. Very interesting. So I'm just going to play a video here. So let me go ahead and share the screen.
We are finding the truth about our past. And the truth that this place that we live is incredible. It's filled with perfection. And we have been distracted from it for far too long. When you walk down the street, you will now see the previous civilization's work in your city because they are honestly everywhere and they deserve our attention. Henry Cobb, the first Henry that we were given, is a character that needs to be covered. Here we are given a list of buildings that Cobb is credited with knocking out over 100 years ago. There is one specifically that caught my eye, and that is the Chicago Federal Building. And let's take a look at this picture for a minute. We have shown this type of nonsense before, so let's do it again. They show this fake wagon sitting on the dirt road with more people that are identical next to each other in white. These are not real people. They are all photoshopped. If we zoom in on it, you can clearly see that they are duplicates. They are copy-pasted. And the other one is all glitched out.
Video,
who just stands in the middle of a road anyway? None of it fits in. You have a massive building, yet you have horse and wagon, and you have dirt roads. If it rains, the dirt is going to become so wet, and you will not be moving any limestone. Yet this was never an issue for the mainstream narrative. The dirt is always looking like it had just been raked and perfected for the photo. There's a dirt road down the street from my house, and they have to fix that thing all the time. Otherwise, there's massive holes in it. There are no holes in this picture. It's a perfect dirt road. I'm at the point where I'm going to say that this was prepared for the photo in our new civilization. The dirt is sitting on top of the past civilization's work. These buildings are under the dirt. They are much bigger than we can see. This is not the original road. It's all backwards. The road always comes first in construction because you need to be able to access the construction site. This is obvious stuff that the narrative ignores. Like we said, getting the materials there and the machinery would be nearly impossible with dirt roads and donkeys and wagons. If it snows or rains, then just forget about it. Other than a few fake people, a couple fake wagons and a light post, this is in Chicago. And we all know that Shalaga is not abandoned. There are literally no people in this photo. My point is that if this is true, that these are Photoshop people in wagons, which is looking more and more clear that this is the case, then was this the very first picture of this building for our current civilization to see? It's strange, especially when we hear the story about the building.
Okay. All right. So that was fucked up. A lot of baseless claims there. There wasn't like an ounce of proof at all. You heard it. Now, what you weren't really seeing, though, is they were showing an old picture of the Chicago Federal Building back in the 18 or 1900s. I don't know exactly when the picture was taken. Probably 1900s. After the Chicago fire. So, like, that's one thing. Like, the city fucking burnt down. So they rebuilt it. And then, like I was telling you earlier about the pipes. So they put the pipes on the street. They raised the city so that they could have a sewage infrastructure. So, like, I don't know what the hell this guy's talking about. He's talking about, all right, so it was an old photo, like I was saying. I was reading up some stuff on this shit. So it's a long exposure photo. And apparently, I didn't know this, if there's like a lot of motion with long exposure photos, it doesn't get caught. The whole point of it is it was a camera that sat and used the sun, and it burned the image through a shadow sort of deal. So when they took that picture, if there were people there, I don't know, maybe it was a faster exposure or something, and so it did actually catch some people that were probably standing around and whatnot. But like the Photoshop thing, I don't know what the fuck that guy's talking about. I think the word he wanted to use was photo doctoring, but whatever. So this is one of the videos I saw. So I thought that was kind of fucking ridiculous. With knowing Chicago history and then them trying to pull that doesn't make sense. And two, like, so he's basically saying, or all these people are saying, when it comes to this Tatarian society, that basically some of these structures that you see, they're just sticking out of the ground, and then they go down like hundreds of feet, which is pretty wild shit. So they're basically saying we either dug them out or we found them. And again, the elite, in quotes, are the ones that are hiding all this, so to say.
We are finding the truth about our past.
Sorry. So yeah, let me find this other video here. This one, yeah, this one's going to be more about San Francisco. Well, it's going to be about it's going to kind of say the same thing, but
I believe many of these cities were empty and abandoned for
so
some time.
These pictures are saying
after the
1878.
Just look at
and there's
scenes
old
from
pictures
this 1878 panorama of San Francisco, one of many cities in the supposed 1800s time frame when we do get photos. Aside from the whited out skies, you will see not a single person, not a single horse and buggy.
Long exposure.
Nothing. The streets are empty.
So if they're all moving
abandoned.
around, it's not
no
being
scaffolding, smoke from the chimneys, no sign of life at all. And here going to St. Petersburg in 1880. Look at that overgrowth, right up to the steps of that cathedral, and a few people posing around the founded masonry, the founded Freemasonry. And here again,
I don't
some more
get the
shots
point
of St.
about
Petersburg from
no
around the
people.
same time. You won't find barely anyone. Not an idle horse and buggy cart.
I get that point.
Not a idle food stand. No debris. Nothing. Just muddy, abandoned streets.
They don't really look
the
muddy and
narrative
abandoned.
is just long exposure time. That's how cameras work then. But let's look at some shots from the same time period. Some even older than those photos. And you'll see a vibrant city street life, marching soldiers. What you will see with the exposure time on long is a blur, which is not what you see here. Look to places like the catacombs of Paris.
I'd have to look into
millions of bones
the different types of cameras. Maybe we'll take a look after this
for the
video.
question of where all the remains were after these cities were dug out. They had to be put somewhere. History is nothing more than a set of lies agreed upon. Question everything, friends. Until next time.
Okay, so I guess he's trying to. I don't get like why it matters if there's people in the photos or not. But he's trying to use. They're trying to use that as a point, like with these pictures, like oh, there's no people. Okay, big deal. Like I was reading that these long exposures if people are moving around and whatnot. So let's Google this. I mean, for all I know, AI. Hold on. So let's see here. I'm not saying AI back then. I'm saying maybe the photos have been recently redoctored later in life so those things can be clear. There's once upon a time that photography shutter times were so slow they had never captured portraits or humans in pictures for the first photograph in 1826. So 1826 was of a stationary scene. It was not until 1838 when humans were accidentally captured and observed on photograph. So, yeah, if you remember, that dude was talking a little later time periods, like 1860s. They were showing people and whatnot. So I think we've already kind of debunked this a little bit. Basically, from 1826 to 1838, you couldn't really see humans, and then shutter speeds were getting better. So let's see here. As a thought of experiment to understand this better. Oh no, it's just telling you how to understand shutter speed. Okay, so let's see what the next one says. If there's anything about. Well, here, let's do this. Camera shutter speeds 1836. So I don't have a clear answer on that. So I'm starting to think though, like obviously this stuff was starting to get better as we progressed towards 1900s. So I mean, right here is 1899. That's a pretty clear picture of a lady running and the horse running too. So, I mean, yeah, I think that's just bullshit. The way that TikTok was set up there. But yeah, they're not really convincing arguments. It's just basically this mud flood came, took out the society, and the elite held it back. Now I'm trying to like analyze this a little further, and I want to obviously if you've been listening to the show, you know Jared and I talk about conspiracy theories a lot, or not a lot, but we try to do it every now and then. So obviously I do get entertained by conspiracy theories, and not that this is actually really a conspiracy theory. This is actually kind of fact that Russia or the Russians and Chinese definitely do some instigating in this country. They'll hack things, get information, but they also will spread disinformation and they'll use social media. They're pretty good at it, from what I've read into. They understand it a lot better than kind of like the U.S. does, and so it's kind of their strong point. So I was just kind of thinking to myself, well, what if this is just another one of those Russian disinformation things? So I'm trying to think, like, well, what's like the point to it? Like, why would they do it? And realistically, because this is like a confusing thing when you watch this. Like, it's incredibly confusing. Like, you're just like, okay, so like nobody built anything, everybody just dug everything out, and nobody's saying a fucking word about it. Like, that don't make sense. But like, what if it is to like confuse you? Because like one of these people, I was watching a YouTube earlier. It was like a 10-minute YouTube on this, and I'm trying to learn a little bit more about what this is all about. And so in that YouTube, he was starting to say things like, oh, what the hell was it? I just lost my thought. Fuck, I hate when that happens. And I don't have Jared here to fucking recap what I was just talking about. Not good, guys. Not good. Yeah. So basically in this YouTube video, they were going over the whole Tartarian thing, and I just started remembering my point. So, trying to think like what the main, driver, why this would like benefit like Russia or China to give us this kind of bullshit. And personally, it's to stroke the cocks of the fucking conspiracy theory world. All right, the flat earthers have you, the alien lovers, or the fucking deep state, people, all that shit. So like, because there's like a lot of that stuff, and sometimes I think to myself, that could also be Russian disinformation, to get us all riled up and start yelling at our government. Hey, why are you holding the ETs behind us? Why are you doing all these experiments? Drilling tunnels or whatnot. But like, I think it's just another thing to confuse. I don't want to say the less educated, but just to confuse people in general, people that get into these conspiracy theories. And some people may buy it, others may not. Me right now, I don't buy it. I think it's completely bullshit. I mean, look, I'll say like, Russia does have some pretty like crazy looking, like cathedrals and buildings and whatnot. Like their architecture is very interesting. But I don't believe that it was like this advanced society. And like, dude, some of these people are trying to say like this is where like Jesus Christ and like everything like the Bible talks about with like where Jesus Christ, where he came from and all that shit. Like apparently that's all a lie, and it's really just based on like this Tartarian or this aka Russian person. And so like everything is like the root of everything is in this Russian territory, essentially this lost society. So like that's another reason why I think this is like some kind of like weird Russian like disinformation. Like I don't know if they're actually losing this war, but they're not doing that good. And they say some of the weirdest shit. Like I heard like they were okay, yeah, so like as this war has been going on in Russia, like I've heard some weird shit like okay, like they're trying to tell their people that like Ukrainians, there's like Ukrainians that are being given like the super soldier serum, and they're like these fucking demons, bloodthirsty demons on the war front, just ripping Russians apart and shit. Like, so that's like one thing that they were actually saying in their mainstream media. And then another thing they're now like I think what they're saying is that they're gay demon Nazis. I thought I heard that's something that's going around out there, and it's like what the fuck, like so like their propaganda is just weird as fuck. Some of the shit that they say, like you'll never catch like U.S. senators saying like, oh, we gotta go kill the gay fucking Nazis or demons or whatever. I like to think we're a little bit more civil than that. But yeah, those Russians, like they say some of the weirdest shit to their people. As so we're being told. Who knows? Maybe the elite is controlling that subject. But anyways, so that's kind of why I'm on the fence on this. Like, obviously, I don't believe it, but I'm just trying to understand where it's originating from. Maybe some fucking creative person did put this together, and it's kicking off. But I don't know. Could be anything. So, but for some reason, though, it just gives me this vibe where it's, I guess at the end of the day, it's trying to make you think that maybe life began in Russia. Okay, like, it's a weird thing to think about, but like, again, they could be losing this battle, or at least they're at a standstill. They need all the support that they can get, maybe they can, get at this. Maybe this is one way that they can maybe lure people into it. And so you get into this, and then maybe something else pops up in your feed, and then you get trailed off into that. I don't know. But this is just, yeah, it's just like, it's pretty dumb. And pretty dumb to think that society, like recent society, like within the past 200 years, like we've just been digging out buildings and now we have, our cities and shit. No, fuck that. What I could believe is like maybe 10,000 years ago there might have been, because I do get into this guy Graham Hancock, and he does talk about like these past civilizations, and a lot of that's interesting, to think that we did have like societies just as advanced as we are right now, probably fucking podcasting, no, but like really advanced societies that were lost to some type of cataclysms, and I forget exactly how far he dates things, but it like goes back. Shit, I don't know, 10,000, maybe even longer than that. But he works with another guy, this Randall Carlson, and this guy, I think he's a geologist. I forget, but like he's read a lot of or done a lot of research with what do you call it? These ice cores. I forget where they were taking, like Greenland, I want to say, or yeah, Greenland's the one that's made out of ice, and Iceland's the one that's always green. But yeah, it was Greenland. They took it out. I think it was like over a mile long, and so what you can get out of a ice core is you can actually see the history of the Earth because it's all preserved there. You see the different rocks and like the different levels of all different kinds of things. And so, but it tells us stories, tells us how hot things were, how cold they were, and like they're able to corroborate a lot of like climate change things that have happened over the course of, however many years this mile long core goes. I think it can go maybe millions of years. I don't know, or hundreds of thousands. Well, no, maybe millions because they can get into the ice ages and all that shit. So they know the different they can see within the ice core like the different ice ages and all that. But like it tells a lot of information though where societies were and like how so the medieval times they consider that the dark times. Is because it was actually the planet was colder and so it was harder to grow things and there wasn't a whole lot of food, so people were pretty much starving. But then we start getting out of the medieval times. We start getting into these more progressive, and things are industrializing and whatnot. How do I want to put this? I guess how I want to put it is, so yeah, everything was kind of industrializing, and the reason why that was happening, why the Enlightenment period started happening and all that, is because the weather did start changing into the favor. It started warming up. So crops were able to be grown. People were starting to live prosperous again, And then kind of from there on, everything's been it depends on where you're at in the world and, whatnot, but societies started rising. But societies fell too throughout those periods up until now, really. I mean, still kind of happening. So, all right. Well, yeah. So I think I'm gonna end it here. We're at about 30 minutes. I didn't think I'd make it this long, honestly. It's really hard doing these by yourself, talking to yourself and whatnot. It's a really awkward thing, but I hope you guys do enjoy this. If you hear anything about the mud flood, I would run the other way. Yeah, I would run the other way. It's not worth it. It's like the flat Earth. It's just like there's a lot of other proof that it's like total bullshit. And my main again, I'm just gonna end it with this. My main argument on this whole mud flood thing is Chicago. Like, we raised the fucking city. I don't know what to tell you. There's no secret society. We didn't dig out the federal building. I don't know how they got it over. I mean, that's actually a good point. Limestone over mud. But I am sure. Like I kind of tried muttering earlier in that video. We're Chicago. I mean, we were a very innovative city. I mean, we did a lot of fucking awesome shit. A lot of cool shit. So, I mean, I don't think mud roads were an issue. Especially, like I said, we raised the fucking roads. We raised the city. So, fuck that. But, yeah. Stay away from the mud flood. Thank you for tuning in to episode 56. Greatly appreciate it. Make sure you do follow us, share, comment. Let us know. That's another thing I wanted to bring up. If you guys got clips, things that you think are fucking hilarious, articles, hit us up on tellitrightpodcast.com. www.tellitrightpodcast.com. Hit up the comment section. Yeah, just throw the link in there. We'll take a look and definitely talk about it. So thank you again, everybody. Have a great day. Happy New Year.